A pleasure to see you.
Are those all of the judges? I'm assuming yes, since folks have turned off their camera and muted themselves. And so with that being said, if everybody is ready, just give me a quick thumbs up and I'll go ahead and begin recording time. Okay, looks good. So with that being said, I am pressing the timer now. Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline, and I will be serving as your mediator today. My pronouns are she and her. Please feel free to call me Caroline throughout the course of this mediation. It is my pleasure to assist you in working through these issues that brought you to this virtual mediation session. Thank you for taking time out of your week to be here today. I commend you all for choosing mediation, and I thank you for trusting me to be your neutral and impartial guide through this dispute resolution process. Now, before we get down to the substance of today's mediation, I'd like to begin by briefly discussing some etiquette that is necessary for successful virtual mediation. Please be sure to silence all electronic devices, and if you run into any other technical difficulties, whether it be with sound or video during our time together today, please let the group know by either utilizing the chat function, or if that's not working, simply raising your hand. Furthermore, if during the mediation there is no natural break in conversation and you would like the opportunity to respond to a comment that has just been made, please physically raise your hand. I will see this request and I will make sure that you are afforded the opportunity to respond. Each and every person here today is an integral part of the mediation process. And I want to ensure that each person has an equal opportunity to participate. In just a moment, we'll go through an overview of what mediation is and what you should expect out of our time together today. However, before I get to this overview, let's take a few moments for some guided introduction. Now, I know that you have had a previous mediation session together, but given as it's been a little while, let's just take a few moments to reintroduce ourselves. So I am going to put 3 questions in the chat if you'll turn your attention there. And in case you are having trouble seeing them, I will read them out loud as well. First and foremost, what is your name and what are your preferred pronouns? Secondly, are you open to the idea of settlement? And thirdly, do you have the authority to settle if we are able to reach mutually agreeable terms today? So with that being said, would anyone like to begin? If not, I'm happy to choose at random.
I can begin.
Definitely.
Great. So I am Lawyer McClain, go by Michael McClain. My pronouns are he, him. I am willing to, open to using mediation to come to a resolution today. And I am also, we're authorized to come to an agreement. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that with the group. And what do you prefer to be called today?
Mr. McClain is fine. Yeah.
Mr. McClain, you've got it. Thank you so much. Why don't we hear from your client?
Sure. So my name is Rhonda Hassan. I can go by Miss Hassan. My pronouns are she, her. I am very much open to settling this dispute today through mediation, and I have the authority to do so.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hassan. Let's move on to the folks from the other side with why don't we begin with the attorney for Limbury Howell Ostrich Farm?
Hi, Caroline. My name is Miss Kara Taylor. I'm the attorney representing Limbury Howell Ostrich Farm. I am open to mediation for resolution today, and I do have the authority to make a settlement here today. My pronouns are she and her, and you can just call me Miss Taylor.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Taylor. And last but certainly not least, I believe we have our CFO from Limbury Howell Ostrich Farm.
Yes,
Please go
thank you,
ahead.
Caroline. My name is Mona Limbury. You can call me Miss Limbury. My pronouns are she, her. My attorney and I both have full authority to settle this matter today here at mediation, and we are open to a settlement.
Righty. Thank you so much, Ms. Limbury. And thank you to all of you for sharing with the group. You just took the first critical step that is necessary towards building a rapport and trust that we need to have in order to bring a positive resolution to this matter. Now, I can't promise you that we will reach settlement by the end of our time together today, but rest assured, knowing that we can take steps towards positive resolution so long as everyone commits to keeping an open mind and to actively listening to what others have to say. In doing so, not only will you learn more about the other party's perspective, but you'll also likely gain new insights into your own interests. Now, that being said, I know that we have had mediation prior, but as that was a little while ago, let's do a brief refresher so that we know what to expect out of our session today. First and foremost, this mediation session is confidential, which is important to note since confidentiality is a critical part of the trust building process. Generally speaking, if you tell me something in private and then ask me to keep it confidential, I am bound by law not to disclose this information voluntarily. There will be, furthermore, mediation is a voluntary, non-legal proceeding. There will be neither judge nor jury presiding over the matters we'll be discussing here today. Rather, I will be assisting you as a neutral, impartial, third-party mediator in generating creative solutions for the resolution of this matter. My role as the mediator is to facilitate discussion and to help you communicate with each other clearly as you work towards settlement. I am not here to represent any particular side, nor will I evaluate the merits of any legal claims or defenses as it relates to this matter. I also do not possess the power to order you to settle. Ultimately, the parties will collaboratively decide whether we settle here today or whether we try a mediation another day. This is what makes mediation so effective and so unique from other forms of dispute resolution. So, I encourage each and every person here today to be creative, to think expansively, since you are empowered to craft a resolution that uniquely meets your needs and addresses your own interests. And before we begin, let me briefly explain the mediation process that we'll be engaging with today. Congratulations, we've already completed the first step in the mediation process, that being initial introductions. And when I complete these preliminary remarks, each of you will be given an uninterrupted period of time to share your opening statements. Now, it is my understanding that we are coming here together today at the Limbury Howell Ostrich Farm and Avec Pleasure to discuss the future of your relationship following a series of unfortunate events. Is that correct, generally speaking? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding. So we're here today to begin to explore the exact terms of that agreement. Please remember throughout to always be courteous and try to avoid interrupting each other. After the parties have presented their opening statements, we will collaboratively build an agenda of particular issues that we would like to address and hopefully resolve during our mediation today. From there, we will transition into a joint mediation session where the parties will be able to engage in fluid conversation. And at some point, I will meet with each of you separately in caucus by using the breakout room function of Zoom. In case you need a reminder, a caucus is a private meeting with the mediator to further discuss the terms of the agreement in a more private setting. Either party may call a caucus, and while in caucus, you should feel free to share with me your thoughts and your feelings about the status of this mediation. Any information that you share with me in caucus will be treated as private and confidential and will not be disclosed during joint mediation sessions unless you specifically give consent to such disclosure. While in caucus, I may push you to challenge your own assumptions about this matter. If I do this, it's not because I think one party's position is stronger than the other. Rather, I'm doing this to encourage you to consider every aspect of this matter as to better facilitate our settlement negotiations. We will meet in caucus by sending the non-caucusing parties into a breakout room. Individual caucuses will occur here within this main mediation session in Zoom. Although there's no time restrictions on caucusing, I will nevertheless keep an eye on the clock out of respect for the non-caucusing party. Once I've privately caucused with each party, all parties will rejoin our joint mediation session to continue. There's no limit on the number of times we can caucus here today, so feel empowered to call a caucus whenever you require one. Additionally, if during the mediation you would like to take a moment and privately meet with your counsel in a conference outside of my presence, that's completely fine. Just let me know, and when one party requests a conference, all parties will be sent into a private breakout room for conferencing. Finally, you should expect to mediate together for approximately 90 to 100 minutes today. I will be keeping track of time, as will our bailiff, and I will give you notice of when there are only 10 minutes remaining. At that time, if the parties have reached an agreement, we will review those mutually agreed upon terms for the purpose of drafting a settlement agreement. If not, we'll talk about scheduling a future date to continue our conversation and mediation session. Now, if you see me taking notes at any time, please know that I'm doing so merely to help me better recall the details of our discussion today. They will not be shared with anyone, and I will remain strictly confidential. All right, so I know I just spoke a lot. Do you have any questions about mediation, what you just heard me say, or about what we will be doing together here today? All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move into opening statements? Is there anyone who would like to begin? And if not, again, I'm happy to choose at random.
I can begin. Oh, go ahead, Mr. McClain.
Oh, sure. Oh, thank you so much. So good morning, everyone, and thank you to the mediator, Caroline, and thank you to the Limbury CFO, Ms. Limbury, and Ms. Taylor, her counsel, for coming here today to resolve this dispute. I know that AVEC and Limbury have had very successful negotiations in the past, and so my client are very hopeful of coming to an agreement for resolving the issues arising out of the interview in Variety magazine. I'll turn things over to my client for now so that she can express her interests and her position, and then I will conclude with an outline of our goals for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. McClain. Ms. Hassan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McClain, and thank you to the mediator and to Limbury and her counsel for coming today. As the CEO of AVEC Pleasure Fashion House, I take a lot of pride in our work as an avant-garde designer boutique. Our mission has always been to push the boundaries of fashion. That's why we were so happy to partner with Limbury on this very imperative and innovative effort on the animal rights and environmental sustainability front. It's unfortunate that the partnership has not been as successful as both of us would have hoped. As I'm sure you know, our biggest client was not very happy with the way that the synthetic ostrich feathers looked on our design. And that has caused some bad publicity for us, and we're now at risk of losing her and some other big clients. We had considered proceeding with a lawsuit because the feathers ended up doing us a good deal of harm, but upon our recent discovery, we reconsidered and we decided to mediate first because we wanted to be fair to you as our partner in this venture. We recently discovered that the warehouse where we stored the synthetic ostrich feathers had lost power during one of the hottest days of the year, completely out of our own control. It was only off for about 7 hours, but the temperature quickly rose to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. This may be the reason why the feathers in our designs haven't held up. And we're here today for several reasons, but one of those reasons is to address this issue with you and to see if this really is the reason why the synthetic ostrich feathers aren't up to the standards that you represented, particularly whether you guys knew about the temperature sensitivity issue. We're also under a bit of a time crunch to resolve this particular issue because our expansion into Latin America is launching in 30 days. And Shakira is willing to wear one of our haute couture designs, which would be huge for us, but she'll only do that if she has reassurance that the feathers won't molt on the design. We value our partnership with Limberry and are eager to resolve these issues through mediation so that we here at AVEC can continue creating our quality and unique fashion with Limberry's help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hassan and Mr. McClain. I know you wanted to speak after Ms. Hassan. Would you like to do so now?
Yeah, just a few closing remarks to kind of conclude what
of
her
course.
position was. So just to reiterate my client's position. So time is of the essence here because we are rolling out a business expansion into Latin America within 30 days. And as she mentioned, we are in the process of getting Shakira to wear an outfit that includes the feathers. However, the chances of Shakira wearing the feathers is contingent on us resolving this issue and giving her an assurance that the feathers won't be compromised. We believe a quick resolution is mutually beneficial to both parties, as we are partners in this venture. As such, we are both tied to the success as well as failures in this product. Our first goal is to obtain assurances for the future clients. In particular, we are looking for today a public written statement to assure Shakira that the product is of a suitable quality to avoid the type of press discussed above. Our second goal is a resolution to the temperature sensitivity issues. The first goal is relatively straightforward. It's a written statement. And we realize we can, throughout the process of this mediation today, we hope to kind of come to the exact language to use to provide that assurance to Shakira and any future clients. The second goal is a little more difficult and will likely involve back and forth discussions. The sensitive temperature issues are difficult, and as Ms. Hassan mentioned, we wanted to know if you were aware of this issue. Surely we want to work together on this to see if we could find a way to resolve this. We realize that we use a large volume of your feathers, and as such, they would be stored in large quantities and together, and any slight variation in temperature could be detrimental to both of us, as this would result in bad publicity for our product. So we're very interested in talking with you all today, and thank you so much for being able to meet with us in this mediation session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McClain. Why don't we move on to the two Limberry Howell Ostrich Farm representatives. I saw Ms. Taylor that you started to speak before. Would you like to begin?
Actually, I was wondering if I may go first.
Absolutely, Ms. Limberry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As my attorney, Ms. Taylor, said, my name is Ms. Limberry, and I am the CFO for LHOF. I first want to say thank you to everyone for being here, and to our mediator, Caroline, especially. I really hope that we can work together to find a solution today. As everyone is probably aware, LHOF is a small family business, and we take a lot of pride in our business and our product. We're here today because AVEC Pleasure's failure to store our feathers properly and their clients' resulting comment about looking like a molting chicken has caused some serious damage to my company's reputation. However, I am here today to try and mend this relationship because we were really excited for our partnership with AVEC Pleasure. We truly believe that these synthetic ostrich feathers could be the future of the fashion world. We did enjoy working with AVEC Pleasure and do anticipate there being the potential for significant benefits for both of our companies. So I'm really hoping that we can find a solution and mend the relationship today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Limberry. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Taylor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. And I also want to thank Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan for being here with us today. It's really unfortunate that we find ourselves here at the mediation table again. My client and I sincerely do believe in maintaining a positive and productive, mutually beneficial relationship with AVEC Pleasure. And I know that we've all worked so hard, both now and in the past, to achieve that, and believe that mediation can help us avoid further litigation. Addressing the comments that were made by AVEC's client, it definitely led us to ourselves want to file litigation, but again, would also like to come to mediation in order to solve these conflicts. I want to start first by what I know that we both have in common after hearing Mr. McClain's comments. We both have suffered some negative PR as a result of what happened to the feathers, as well as the comments that were made by AVEC's client. So first, I do want to address that I think we have a mutual beneficial goal in addressing the PR both for AVEC and for Limbury. Secondly, with that kind of run hands in hand, the damage that's been done to our reputation. While AVEC's client made some negative comments, and I do understand that the warehouse got obscenely hot on a day that can have negative reactions to the feathers. While our feathers are very, very durable and made to withstand a lot of use and exposure, extreme heat would definitely affect the quality and the long-term viability of the feather. I think 120 degrees would be within that reasonable realm of what would be considered extreme heat. I understand that the clients are in a time crunch and want to be able to expand into Latin America. I do also understand that, we have been such great partners in the past and now, and we want to be able to continue to do that today. We are willing to help with addressing what needs to be done in order to prevent another future incident like what happened with the Vanity Fair article. We're hoping that we can come together today, address the mutual concerns for both of us, including the PR, the reputation. We also think that it's important both for AVEC and for Limbury to have all agreements confidential and propose signing confidentiality agreements, and feel that with both of us setting off on the right foot, that we can come to a decision that will help not only secure our issues that we're addressing here today, but ensure further mutual success for both companies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor. And thank you to all for sharing with the group. It sounds to me like we have some common aims in being here today. So with that being said, I'm going to do a quick recap of what we discussed to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then we will collaboratively build an agenda together. So what I am hearing from the Limbury side is that they are interested in maintaining a relationship with VEC Pleasure. If both parties are able to come to mutually agreeable terms surrounding a number of issues. The first being the reputation of both respective parties, so finding a way to rectify that within the press, and also to ensure that these issues can be mitigated or better prevented in the future. I also am hearing that the Variety magazine article and Avec Pleasure's client's comments about the feathers looking like they were molting was of particular damage. And so hoping to sort of mend the relationship and the respective reputations that were exacerbated by those statements. And I am also hearing that they are willing to work with Avec Pleasure and are mindful of the 30-day kind of crunch time and limit that they have experienced. I am also hearing on the side of Avec Pleasure that you are interested as well in repairing the respective publicity and operations damage that came about because of these series of events. I hear you when you say you want to obtain assurances for future clients, and that you are looking to find a resolution regarding those sensitive temperature issues. So that being said, that's a broad overview of what we've discussed so far. Let me go through and pull a few of the distinct items out so we can craft an agenda here together. Does that sound okay with everyone? All
Yes.
right. So one,
Yes, thank you.
thank you all. So let's begin with something that we are all on the same page about, which is resolving our PR issues. And I just want to say, from the standpoint of mediation, it is wonderful that we already are agreeing on something, that we are coming into this space with a common goal that is absolutely in the spirit of our mediation session here today, and sets a really important foundation for the success of our session and your future relationship. So, to that note, resolving any potential PR issues, I hear from the avec pleasure side that specifically obtaining assurances for future clients in the form of a written statement, a public written statement, is very important. And we are interested, and I hear from avec pleasure that they are interested in determining some of the exact language that would be in that statement here today, even if we don't finish beginning to have that conversation. Agenda item number 2, a resolution to these temperature issues. So I think we need a little bit of clarity on whether the folks at Limbury were aware of these issues to the extent it sounds like from your end, these feathers were quite durable, but even in extreme heat can suffer quality and performance. Thirdly, we have an issue in confidentiality. I think this speaks to what you both all said about wanting to maintain the positive reputations of both companies. So finding some way to make sure that whatever is discussed and settled here today remains confidential, in an agreement there. And then finally, figuring out an appropriate mechanism for ensuring that these quality and production issues do not occur going forward. And it sounds like there are a lot of exciting opportunities on the board potentially, including this opportunity with Shakira to potentially wear one of the avec pleasure's outfits featuring the feathers, contingent upon if the feathers are in good quality. Now, do either of the parties have anything to add to this agenda? Is there anything I missed or that you would like to clarify?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. McClain. And I am here seeing sort of head shakes and not hearing anything else from other parties. So
We're good moving forward. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor, for confirming. So with that being said, we're starting off with some common goals, which is very exciting to see. And we are moving on to discuss the logistics and what it would take to continue this relationship in a mutually beneficial fashion. So that being said, would one party like to begin and discuss any of the agenda items that I just laid out?
Yes, I would start. I first want to address the first topic brought up by Mr. McClain, the public written statement. I just want a little bit more information on what they're looking for that to entail, and details around that to confer with my client about the logistics of that.
Mr. McClain, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Yes. So we're hoping that throughout the discussion, we can kind of arrive at some language that can provide assurance to Shakira or her, legal team or PR team to indicate we, identified that there was an issue that resulted in the malted chicken incident. I guess we can call it that. We've identified the cause of that problem, and we've, taken steps to ensure that this does not happen again. Essentially, and at this point, I realize that this is still a bit vague, but essentially, if we can identify the problem, tell them that we've taken steps to address the problem, and that assurance that the feathers that are included in her outfit will not, suffer the same fate, that is generally the idea there. I think that this goal is, it's relatively easier, and I think that maybe our time may be best spent moving more towards the maybe remedies for avoiding this in the future, which was kind of the second goal that I outlined. But and we can circle back to this first issue once we kind of address the avoiding this in the future component.
Thank you very much, Mr. McClain, for that response. So what I'm hearing from both of you is that regards to this public written statement, I think Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limbury, we've gotten some more information. It seems like there is a sort of two components to this statement that Mr. McClain and his client, Ms. Hassan, are looking for. That being one, identifying the cause of the problem with these synthetic feathers, and also saying that both parties are taking steps to ensure that it does not happen again. Now, would you agree with Mr. McClain's assessment that this first item is relatively straightforward? And if yes, would you be open to circling back at the end of our discussion?
That's correct.
I would like at this time if I could have a caucus, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. We can certainly do that. So, because Ms. Taylor called a caucus, I will caucus with her and client, Ms. Limbury, first. During that time, Mr. McClain, Ms. Hassan, I'm going to ask you to go to your assigned breakout room. Are you aware of the number of your breakout room?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So please go there when I let you know to. And while there, I ask that you keep an eye on your cell phones so that you can rejoin us when we are ready to switch. When we switch, again, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limbury will go into their own breakout rooms, and I will have time with Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan to discuss their side. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
For the sake of efficiency, would it be possible for after your caucus with Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor for us to hear their response to our proposal, and then we could then caucus with you, Caroline?
Okay, Mr. McClain, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limbury, how do you feel about Ms. Hassan's query?
So just to clarify, you're seeking a response to us issuing a public written statement that would give assurance to Shakira that this incident would not occur again, as well as the steps that we can take to make sure it doesn't happen again. Is that correct? Is that what you're seeking?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, it could even be at this point as simple as yes, and then we can hammer out the specifics of the method of giving this statement to her and all that. But at this point, it's like we hadn't had a clear answer from y'all of whether or not you'd be willing to make such a statement.
I will say, I will add one thing to my attorney's comments, and that is correct. I would say that the statement is more so written in a general manner, not directed at Shakira, because we do have other clients that are concerned about the molting feathers incident. And so we would like a general statement about, just identifying the problem and identifying the steps that we've taken to address it, and just providing reassurance that the problem isn't with the quality of the feathers themselves, as I'm sure they're very high quality, but with just figuring out the cogs around temperature and storage and whatnot. And then we could use that general statement to reassure Shakira that she won't have a problem.
I think that would be possible. Let me confer with my attorney, but depending on the conversation, of course, with my attorney and how that goes, as of right now, I think we would be open to potentially making a statement of such kind.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
Ms. Hassan, are you asking for us to mediate and then us give you a response before you caucus with her, or for us to leave and then you caucus with her privately about our response in the sake of efficiency?
For the sake of efficiency, I would like to hear a response first, and then depending on that response, we can caucus with Caroline about what next steps come.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Alrighty. So it seems like we are all on the same page about wanting just an initial sort of temperature check from Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor regarding this public statement. Again, thank you for clarifying that it would be more general, Ms. Hassan, not necessarily directed towards Shakira specifically, but still be used by Shakira for the purposes of the potential outfit from Avec Pleasure that she might wear. Again, as a reminder, this is sort of a two-step agreement. One, identifying the issue with the feathers and the cause of that, and number two, naming the steps that have been taken in order to rectify the problem going forward. Okay. Are we all in agreement there?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So why don't we move into caucus? Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor, we will discuss this a little bit more, and then I'm happy to take whatever you say back to the other side. Ms. Hassan, you prefer to return all together as a group after that, or do you prefer me to relay what the Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor have discussed?
Relaying is fine. I just wanted to make sure that we had a response for us to discuss in our caucus.
Absolutely. So then we'll go ahead and switch, and after that, we will come back all together.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So at this time, Ms. Taylor Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan, I'm going to ask you to go to that breakout room. Remember, there's no set time for these caucus discussions, but I will be keeping an eye on the clock to make sure we don't run too long. So I'll check in at around 10 minutes and see what the status is out of respect for you both. Sound good?
Yes, that
All
works. Thank you.
Please go ahead and go to your breakout room. Okay, it looks like Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan have gone to their separate breakout room. Thank you very much for calling this caucus. Before we begin, I just want to quickly remind you that this caucus here today is completely confidential. I will not share anything with Mr. McClain or with Ms. Hassan that you do not give me express consent to. So that being said, I say this so that I encourage you to be as open and candid with me as you feel comfortable being, with the knowledge that the more open you are, the more progress we'll generally be able to make towards our resolution, and rest assured that any information you want to remain private will be so. Okay? All right. So with that sort of out of the way, how are you feeling about the status of this mediation session so far?
To be honest, I will say I'm a little worried, especially because the request seeking a public written statement, as well as assurance to all their clients. I strongly believe that the temperatures in the warehouse reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty extraordinary. And while I do understand that it wasn't their fault, I also believe it's pretty reasonable for us to assume that at those temperatures, there might be some kind of issue with our product. Because as we are both aware, those feathers are they're synthetic. So I would say I would be open to making a public written statement as long as they would be willing to admit that the circumstances were extraordinary and not entirely within my control or their control. But as long as proper storage is handled going forward, we don't anticipate that being a problem. Now, with that being said, I was made aware of a design defect in our product, which we strongly believe that we can fix with very minimal cost. And that once we fix this design defect, it will make the feathers virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. So we're really excited about that. However, we are aware that fixing that issue will cause a 3-month delay. And now I know that Avec Pleasure is seeking to release their outfits, I believe, in Latin America for Shakira's tour. I don't see that being a possibility for us. However, I think that if we are able to help them with the storage, maybe potentially help them with storage costs, and making sure that the current feathers are stored at the right temperature, this molting chicken effect won't occur. And we can simultaneously work on fixing the design defect so that this will not occur again.
I hesitate to advise my client to issue a statement that I never want to promise that nothing bad will ever happen again. I feel like that's a very dangerous blanket statement to make into the public sphere, especially depending upon the fact that things like warehouse and temperature control and such can impact. And once the feathers leave our facility, we don't have control over how they are stored, how they're transported, and those things. We can give recommendations, and in order to assist, like my client said, in order to assist AVEC in their success in Latin America and being able to provide Shakira with the feathers, we are willing to help pay towards the storage and safekeeping of the feathers at a reasonable temperature to ensure that this doesn't happen. I think it's imperative to instill that the design defect that Ms. Limberry refers to has to do with the realistic aspects of how the feather relates to a real ostrich feather that AVEC had been used to us using in the past, and that change in manufacturing would just assist in the feather looking even more indistinguishable from a real ostrich feather. However, regardless of that, the product does need to be maintained at a reasonable temperature, which I think that 120 degrees is too hot. But typical travel like temperatures should be okay. And like I said, in an effort to both come to a resolution here today and in order to help moving forward, we would be able to help support some of the costs to maintain that in this situation in order to get them off the ground in Latin America. I think that maybe it would be a good idea if we came out together, possibly. I would counter with us and AVEC maybe making a joint statement, because I feel like there could have been better handling of this on both sides, so that it comes not only from the manufacturer, but because AVEC had a failure at their warehouse as well, that we're both making a statement jointly that we've reviewed and resolved issues with the temperature and the quality assurance of the feathers, and that we're both going to make a commitment moving forward, both in the storage, in the manufacturing and in the storage of the feathers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limberry, for providing that.
Sorry, one more thing.
My apologies.
The reason why I wanted to caucus on this, it's not because I don't think it's a small thing, and I know that the other council said we can circle back to it, but I feel like they're kind of one and the same. The statement that they're asking us to provide, and then the temperature sensitivity, what he called temperature sensitivity issues, these are kind of one issue. It's the temperature sensitivity that's kind of causing some of the issues with the quality assurance. So I just want to make sure that those two aren't completely separated as separate issues. While they're both on the agenda, they're both kind of intertwined with each other.
I'd also like to mention, as my attorney has just stated, that the temperature sensitivity and us doing a statement is very important because my company is thinking of going public. And so we think that, you know, we obviously don't want to take the entire blame because we also don't believe we're entirely at fault, which is why we're open to a joint statement, because we do understand that there is a design defect. However, we do think that if we were to say it's completely on us, that it would cause irreparable harm to my company and especially our plans to go public. So as my attorney mentioned, we're open to a joint statement, and we're open to helping them with the costs of storage for feathers while for their Latin America launch, as well as their designs for Shakira and their other clients. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
And then we'll be able to, as my client mentioned, we'll be able to turn around within a 3 months time span and fix the defect that's just going to make the feathers look more realistic. and those can start shipping out. Like it said, there's a 3-month turnaround on that. And in the meantime, we're willing to help put forward resources in order to maintain the current quality of the feathers as shipped, to ensure that there's not temperature damage in the meantime. But that's kind of where we are as far as whenever, as far as bringing an offer to them, is what we're going to counter with a joint statement as opposed to individual statements that we've both jointly come together and figured out both the manufacturing and processing flaw, if you want to call it, and addressing that will address the temperature sensitivity issue, I believe, at the same time. And then you can offer them us helping financially in order to secure the quality of the current feathers for Shakira on their Latin tour, or because I know time is really important to them, and unfortunately we won't have the turnaround time to create a new production within the 30 days that they stated prior to that launch. So we're able to help with that, and that way that I think the joint statement will help with the PR of both companies. So that's kind of where we're at in our initial offer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limbury, for providing that additional context, for kind of taking me through your feelings thus far, and giving some additional information about the new developments that you're making with your company. So I just want to briefly make sure I go through and do a brief recap so that I ensure that I have everything that you raised here, so that I'm able to take it back to the other side as well. And at the end, we can discuss anything that you may or may not want, to leave out. But just for the purpose of making sure that I'm getting everything that you're saying, let me do a brief recap. So I'm hearing that you would be open to making a public statement, but preferably a joint public statement, acknowledging sort of mutual responsibility. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, a joint
Yes.
statement.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Limbury. I hear you when you say that this 120-degree temperature snafu was extremely out of the ordinary and not necessarily predictable or under either party's control. And so I definitely understand the joint statement aspect of this. I also hear you saying that you would be interested in putting on the table the offer to help Avec Pleasure financially with the storage of the feathers in the interest of their expanding efforts in Latin America, and this potential outfit collaboration with Shakira, which I'm hearing some from both sides generating a lot of interest. Am I correct to say that?
Yes, we're willing to help them out monetarily with some storage solutions, and we're willing to put money towards that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying that. And I hear you, Ms. Taylor, when you're saying that the temperature issues and the sensitivity is entwined with this statement. I also hear you when you say there is a danger in providing a blanket statement, making assurances there will be no issues in the future. And so as a common ground, I think it might behoove you and Ms. Limbury to think about perhaps being very intentional with language, saying that we are doing everything that we can to ensure that these issues do not arise again, and are taking an additional layer of review in the interest of maintaining a quality product in the future. Something along those lines. Obviously, that's just a suggestion, and you as the parties are in complete control of that language. And lastly, I'm hearing that there's a very exciting new development where you've identified a way to fix this design defect and make the feathers appear more realistic and virtually indistinguishable from their real ostrich feather counterparts. Because that process will be about a 3-month time frame turnaround, you are willing to, in the meantime, put money, as Ms. Limbury said, towards helping the expansion in Latin America and the time-sensitive dress potential outfit for Shakira, to ensure that there is proper storage methods and we don't endure another 120-degree snafu that would result in bad press for both parties. Okay. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, I would just, in terms of language for a joint statement, I would just feel more comfortable with something like we're making a reasonable effort, and due to our the steps that we have taken, we don't foresee the same issue happening again in the future. But I'm going to stop short of saying we can guarantee there won't be one.
Okay.
I would also like to, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Please go right ahead.
I know we discussed a joint statement, just kind of making sure we can reassure Avec Pleasure's clients as well as Avec Pleasure. However, I would like to seek a solution so that my business can also recover from the negative PR. I'm wondering if we can do some kind of joint collaboration as we currently are with our partnership, where some of their clients are, again, wearing our designs and making, doing a photo shoot or speaking positively about our ostrich feathers and the designs that come out of it. I think that would go a long way in showing good faith and kind of helping my company's reputation do better, as well as rebuilding that relationship between us and Avec Pleasure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Limbury. Ms. Taylor, did you want to comment on that at all?
No, I concur with what she said. Thank you.
All right. So I can certainly raise that with the other party. The possibility of other clients wearing designs that have your feathers, saying positive things as a showing of good faith and moving forward. Now, that being said, is there anything that we discussed in this caucus here today that you prefer to remain confidential and do not want me to share?
I've spoken with my client, and I think at this point, in the terms of furthering our relationship and longstanding business relationship and goals for the future with Avec Pleasure, that we're going to allow you to share what we've discussed in its entirety.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. So that being said, what I'm going to do now, unless do you have any more questions for me before we break and you can have your individual conference while I'm with the other party?
No, Caroline, I think we're doing good. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So that being said, I am going to send a message now to Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan, asking them to rejoin our main session. And once they do, you can go ahead and go to your own breakout room, and I'll make sure to relay what we discussed. All right. Thank you, Mr. McClain, for rejoining us.
Of course.
And thank you as well to Ms. Hassan. Now we are going to switch and have Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor go to their assigned breakout room. Are you aware of which breakout room you're going to? Okay, great. So please join that breakout room now. And again, as I mentioned to the other side, keep an eye on your phone. Okay, wonderful. Okay, Mr. McClain, Ms. Hassan, yes. Thank you for your patience as I caucused with the other party. What we are going to do now is, well, before I begin, I just want to reiterate what I said in the beginning, that this caucus is entirely confidential. And so whatever we discuss, the three of us here today, I will not share with the other side without your express permission. Okay, so I will make sure to verify all of that at the very end. That being said, you asked me to sort of relay what the other side, what Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limbury are thinking in regards to the initial offer you put on the table about this public statement. So if you would like, I can launch right into that. But I wanted to ask whether either of you wanted to share any thoughts before then, generally about the status of this mediation.
I mean, we have a general boilerplate draft that could be provided as a letter, and basically open to whoever we would want to address it to, any future clients. Shakira and her legal team, also included, but just in case that helps clarify the discussion. But yeah, we're very happy to hear from them and what their thoughts are on this opening statement, or this public statement regarding the feathers.
Thank you, Mr. McClain. Ms. Hassan, do you concur?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you very much. So that being said, we did have the opportunity to discuss this public statement in a little bit greater detail. Right off the bat, I am going to come out and say that the other party seems very willing to compromise and meet you here with some sort of a public statement, which is wonderful news because it means that we are already on the same page about a key element that is very important to you. So a lot of progress just immediately there. Now, that being said, they have some ideas about how we might craft such a statement. And I know you said you have some boilerplate language. Let me go through sort of
Sure.
what they were thinking, and then we can discuss how that aligns with your vision and how we can find a way to compromise. Now, they are interested in issuing a joint statement together, recognizing, I think, as both of you said in the opening mediation session, that this 120-degree temperature snafu was completely unpredictable, out of either party's control, and kind of one of those unfortunate things that just happens, that you can't necessarily account for, and therefore you can't really put the blame entirely on one person or the other. So just acknowledging that this is out of the ordinary, extraordinary circumstances, and they think that a joint statement acknowledging that fact from both sides would go a long way in repairing the relationship that the two of you have together. So that is the first proposal that they put out. Now, Mr. McClain, I know that you asked about sort of settling this public statement issue first, because it's relatively simple, and then moving on to the long-term issues with the temperature. I will say that the other side feels that perhaps these two issues are a little bit more entwined than that, and so they'd like to kind of perhaps work through it a little bit longer here at the offset, rather than completely circling back later.
Okay.
Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I mean, just so I'm clear, we have a few ideas for potentially remedying this situation. One of our concerns is, of course, since VEC operates globally, running into an issue of, while 120 may be characterized as extreme temperatures, a warehouse facing the sun anywhere on the equator could potentially reach those temperatures. It's not unheard of. And also considering certain countries that we, sell our goods in. So it very likely could happen again. And so we have a few proposed ideas, and like, it sounds like that they would be willing to basically hear those ideas from us, and they maybe have some ideas as well.
Yes, I think that is correct, Mr. McClain, and I'm glad to hear that you've thought of some language. I will say that the other side did express, I think, a similar sentiment, that rather than putting out a blanket statement that this will, never happen again, and running the risk of false assurances, as you said, it's not unheard of, rather sort of saying something along the lines of, we're making a reasonable effort, and due to the steps we've taken, we don't foresee the same issue occurring in the future. So something along those lines. Is that in line with what the two of you were thinking?
That is very much in line with our boilerplate that we were working on. Of course, we wouldn't want to say this will never happen again. So it's essentially, we've identified a problem arising from the method of storage of the feathers, and since then we have adjusted the conditions for storing the feathers, and that thereby reducing the likelihood of their quality reducing in any in future instances or circumstances. So that's roughly the language that we're going for. But it sounds like we're both us and Limbury are aligned here in finding language to say generally we've identified the issue, and are taking steps that we believe will remedy this issue or reduce the likelihood of some negative effect occurring. So it sounds good.
I'm also open to us issuing a joint statement because I think that goes a long way in terms of showing good faith and reiterating the fact that we are partners and this isn't, just on one party or another. And we wanted to bring Linbury into the situation so that it would be more of an assurance to our clients that we've contacted the manufacturer, we've worked on this problem together, and we're coming to a solution. So that's why we wanted Linbury to be a part of it. And we're more than happy to make that statement from the both of us.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Hassan and Mr. McClain. I am very encouraged to hear you being so flexible and willing to do a joint statement. So I think we're making tremendous progress. Now, I do want to make sure that I am relaying everything that the other side wished me to confer to you. So a few other sort of items of note in relation to that. Regarding the dress for Shakira and your expansion into Latin America, I will preface by saying that the other party is very excited about the prospect of that deal. Excuse me for one moment. I see that our bailiff has turned her video on.
60-minute reminder. Sorry, carry on.
No worries. Thank you so much for that reminder. Okay, so that being said, they are very excited about this potential deal and agree that it could generate a lot of positive publicity for both parties. They did ask me to share that they have identified a defect in their design process, not at all related to the heat and the ability of the feathers to, withstand temperatures, but more just related to the appearance of the feathers. And so the feathers, once they sort of fix this issue that they've identified, they have assured me that the feathers that they will be producing subsequently will be virtually indistinguishable from real ostrich feathers. So this is excellent news, and they are very excited about the prospect and the ability and the positive impact that this will have on the future products that you put out. Now, because you have this 30-day crunch with Shakira, they are willing to put some money forward to make sure that you have the proper storage mechanisms for those feathers in advance of Shakira, so you can ensure that, an issue like the one that arose this past time with 120 degrees doesn't occur again, because they won't be able to turn around that new batch of virtually indistinguishable feathers. It'll take them about 3 months to do so. They're willing to put up some funds to help you with the storage costs associated with expanding into Latin America and this new deal. So I want to sort of get your thoughts on that. And I do want to say I have one other item that they requested I share. So I can either go through all together or we can go one by one. Your preference.
All right. I think let's hear everything.
Yeah.
And discuss.
Okay. Absolutely. So the last item they asked me to share with you was that they are, in addition to this joint statement that you're putting out, they are really looking for a more targeted recovery from the bad press that they received and that had a significant impact on their business, specifically from the Variety article. And so they are hoping for assurance of increased increased opportunities of your clients wearing their designs, as well as the opportunity for them to be saying positive things, which again, they believe would have a positive outcome for both you and for Limbury. So that is the entirety of what was discussed, and I would love to hear your response.
Well,
No, go ahead.
I just had a clarifying question. And so they are saying that they identified a separate issue with the feather, with the feather's visual quality. And they are planning on fixing that within 3 months, but because they can't fix that within the time period that we have to provide that reassurance to Shakira, they're willing to invest more into proper storage for the feathers that she will be wearing. So does that mean that the defect that they identified is linked somehow to their temperature resistance? So
that is, go ahead.
No, I was just going to clarify that point.
That's exactly the question that I had, where it just sounds, and I was thinking that it sounded like these were independent, like we actually have created a new feather 2.0 that is virtually indistinguishable from an ostrich feather. So this is the new thing we could use moving forward. However, it may still have these temperature sensitivity issues. Is that correct?
But if it's not that, but that the fixing that defect in the visual quality will also fix the temperature sensitivity, then those things are a bit more interlinked.
Yeah, I'm wondering if exactly are the new version, the aesthetic quality and the temperature, are they interlinked?
I think it's an excellent question, and to my understanding, and again, Ms. Limbury was very, very clear and adamant when she made this distinguishment to me. They are not linked. So it is more what you, Mr. McClain, kind of prefaced as kind of a new synthetic feather 2.0, an improvement on the prior product in that it looks even more close to a natural ostrich feather, virtually indistinguishable. So that raises the really exciting possibilities for the future about the potential for the design. But it is as with the feathers in their current state, because of their synthetic nature, they are quite durable, but in extraordinary cases of heat, like the 120 degrees, it would probably still have some effect.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers mine, Ms. Hassan.
Yes, it does. I just have a follow-up, and I guess maybe we can discuss this in joint session, but does that mean that the adjustments to the storage for these feathers, even after they roll out the new feather that they have produced with the correction to that defect, we will still be having to invest in special temperature controlled storage so that those new feathers aren't also affected by extraordinary temperatures. Is that correct?
So it is my understanding that you will need to undertake the same temperature controlled storage methods as you have for this initial batch. And you can certainly ask for confirmation and clarity on that in that regard during our joint mediation session. And I encourage you to do so. But that is my understanding of the matter.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Of course. So that being said, you've heard a lot more information. I am curious to hear your reactions and how you see us potentially moving forward together.
I mean, I'll go ahead and speak, but first and foremost, I mean, if they have a technique for improving the storage of these feathers, I mean, that's great. And we were hoping to maybe discuss potential investing in sort of, we know that they have a research and marketing that works for designing these, or design group that works for designing the original feathers, and I guess this new batch of feathers. So it sounds like they already have the technology then for ensuring that there's, less of a likelihood that these things are going to be subjected to extreme temperatures during storage. And they're going to provide those to us for this current 30-day batch, or for the batch for Latin America. And then in these subsequent batches, it sounds like they haven't promised whether or not they'll provide those, or if that would be free, or is it like increased costs? I guess we haven't really talked about. It seems like there needs to be some discussion of cost of these, which I guess they haven't. Did they bring up or?
So that's a great question. They did not raise a specific number at this time, but I think that you have identified a really important point of clarification. So I would encourage you, when we return to our joint session, to really kind of, either through yourselves or through me, whatever you prefer, ask for some additional information and clarification around whether they do possess the technology for this improved temperature controlled storage of the feathers that they're seemingly willing to provide in this 30-day period. And if yes, what is the possibility of them continuing to provide that technology and that storage going forward, and what are the related costs? So yeah. I think that's an excellent point that you've identified. I am happy either way. If you would like to raise that with them, or if you prefer me to facilitate, it is completely up to you and to Mr. Hassan.
Mrs. Hassan, do you want to?
I think we can bring that up in joint
Yeah.
session. And I just had one more follow-up. You said that they were looking for a more targeted recovery. Did they get into specifics about that? Do they want us to tell our clients to wear our pieces more often? Do they want a specific clause in our contracts with our clients saying that they can't say certain things to press? What does that exactly look like?
I think that's an excellent question that you raised. For now, they merely raised the desire to have more of your clients kind of wear the designs featuring their feathers, and during those opportunities to have them make positive public statements to sort of help repair the damage that their company incurred and cures. Now, I can't speak to specific clauses, but Ms. Hassan, I think you raise an excellent point, and that's certainly something to bring into our joint session when we return.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. That being said, as I said at the beginning, this is a confidential meeting. Is there anything that we discussed here today that you would not like me to share at the time being?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, no, everything seems fine to bring up in a joint meeting.
Okay, and do you have any questions before we break and come back together?
I have no further questions.
Okay, Ms. Hassan?
No, I don't either. Thank you.
All right, that being said, I am going to ask Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor to rejoin us. And it looks like we have a lot to discuss. I want to commend you again for all the progress that you've made so far and all of your flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Welcome back, Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor. I hope that the time that you had in your breakout room proved valuable for individual conference with each other. And I thank you for your patience as I spoke with Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan. We have some exciting new developments to discuss, and I believe that Ms. Hassan and Mr. McClain would like to sort of raise their response to some of the counteroffers that you put forward. So let me turn over the floor to Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan to share what some of those are.
Thank you. First and foremost, we're fully in support of creating a joint statement, and we have a draft of a statement, and we can go over that shortly. But I just want to emphasize that we do want to, as joint partners in this venture, our success is tied together, and so we're very much in agreement that signing a joint statement to or reduce any wariness of any potential customers is beneficial to for both of us. The mediator had mentioned, Caroline had mentioned that you have a new version of feather, and that it is virtually indistinguishable from an ostrich feathers, which is great. So now this opens up a lot more opportunity for various designs and but one of our questions, just to make sure, is that it sounds like the temperature issue or temperature sensitivity for these relatively high extreme temperatures may still be an issue in the new feather. Is that correct?
Ms. Taylor or Ms. Limbury, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and respond. We are, like we said, we're still in the production process of new feather. So I don't want to say 100% there will be no temperature issues, but I do strongly believe that once this new production is in place, that it would be a lot less likely for temperature to cause an issue like the current one.
Perfect. Thank you. And I had a follow-up question. And so you had mentioned there was some potential new storage technology for shipping the feathers to avoid more as like a fail-safe in case there was a similar event as what happened previously. And we were told that you would use this for any the future shipments for the Latin America expansion. Are there costs associated with this? Is this going to be just for this 30 days? We just had a few clarifying questions regarding the actual implementation of this new kind of storage material, if that's what it is.
Absolutely. It's not a new storage material that we issued. It would be more, we're willing to ship it in under climate control services at a fee that would help maintain the temperature of the feathers during shipment up and until we can get any feathers that are shipped to you up and until the rollout of the new innovative feathers come through. We don't want another issue with the temperature, fluctuation. Now, we cannot control the temperature of your warehouse, obviously. So there is a little bit on that end that we can try and help and come to a amenable solution to verify that like maybe your warehouse can maintain its temperature. But as far as shipping to Latin America or something like that, we're willing. I'm sure there's an expended cost to that just because it's going to cost more than standard shipping would. That is something that we are willing to foot the cost for up and until we can get the implementation of the new feather rolled out, which, as we said before, it has like a 3-month head time on it. And then at that point, we would want to verify the effectiveness and the temperature stability of that feather, obviously, prior to reducing that. I don't know the current state of the rest of the feathers that were in the same shipment as the feathers that were used for the actress in the Vanity Fair article, whether they were all ruined, for lack of a better term, or disfigured because of the temperatures in the warehouse when the warehouse went out. If that is something that happened and the rest of the feathers are damaged, we are willing to replace the quantity of feathers that would have remained from that shipment and ship you out replacement feathers for those. Again, that shipment would be climate controlled, but it would still be on your client's responsibility to maintain the temperature regulation of the warehouse. Maybe there's some things that they can put in place just in that 3-month time frame while we work on getting this new feather out to help secure their temperature regulation, whether that's a generator or something on that sense, to back up their climate control at the warehouse in the meantime. But as far as the shipment of it and then the quality, because you were unaware of the temperature sensitivity and the temperature damage that could happen with the feathers, we obviously want you to continue using our feathers. We want the feathers, my client wants her feathers to be presented in the best light and quality possible. So it does not do us any good to have, for either one of us, to have not the best quality feathers that we can provide being put onto clients. So that's where we are with that. I hope that provides some clarification.
No, it absolutely does. Thank you so much.
A couple.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Don't be sorry at all. Please continue, Ms. Hassan.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for your offer, and we like my attorney said, we are more than willing to issue a joint statement together. We really appreciate the how responsive you guys have been in providing for a temperature or climate controlled shipment, especially for this Latin American batch that's going to be a part of what Shakira wears on the stage, hopefully. And so I wanted to ask a bit more about the targeted recovery that Caroline mentioned, that you guys discussed during the caucus. I wanted to ask what exactly that looked like. I know Caroline said that you had wanted us to address our clients in more of these feathers, and to maybe refrain or maybe caution our clients from saying certain things to the press. What exactly are you looking for in that regard?
So basically, I'm looking for a little bit of recovery because, as you can imagine, the comments made by the actress in the Vanity Fair article really caused my company's reputation to take a hit. So basically, I'm just looking for a potential solution between the both of us where I can help my company's reputation recover. So my potential solution was just to recommend if we could do photo shoots, if we could have other articles in another magazine come out where your clients are speaking positively about our feathers or the designs that you guys have with our feathers. I think that would go a long way in just showing good faith and kind of helping my company's reputation as well as your company's in regards to this incident. And I'm also open. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say I'm also open to like other solutions you guys have in terms of like PR stunts. Those are, again, just recommendations that came to me.
No, I think that is perfect, and I would be very willing to do that as well. I wasn't sure if you guys are maybe looking for some kind of clause in my contracts with my clients about not saying certain things, which I think would have caused some problems. But definitely more photo shoots, more articles with clients speaking positively about the feathers. That is something we can do and would be very good for AVEC as well. So we are very much willing to do that. And I wanted to follow up with what Ms. Taylor said about the climate controlled shipments. We really appreciate that. However, there are some considerations that I want to bring to light. You know, the shipping is just one part of the process. We design our pieces with the feathers, and then those ship out to other places, and we ship out everywhere. And in Dubai, for example, it's not uncommon for temperatures to reach over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and we don't really have much control over the environment that those pieces are being stored in. And so, you know, even if the feathers are in a climate controlled storage while they're being shipped, that's not necessarily going to be a guarantee wherever the design ends up being worn. And so what we would like to do is have some kind of temperature controlled crate or some other kind of storage structure where we can both ship the feathers themselves as raw material, and also where that can house our designs that are fully finished, so that by the time the client is ready to wear them, they're still in good shape. And we would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Correct me, Miss Limberry, if I misspeak. I think we're definitely amenable to that. I feel like I understand what you're saying in the sense that like we ship directly to you, but then you need to ship your products out to your consumers. And the quality of the feathers at the same time needs to maintain its integrity. So we're definitely amenable to that. I would caveat by saying, or maybe put like a temporary stop on guaranteeing this or agreeing to this up until the new feather comes out, and we can then revisit it based on what we decide or what we find out about the sustainability of the future feather, of the next version of the feather, if that sounds fair.
Yes, I think that's fair. And you know, we still need to figure out a way for the finished pieces to be stored in a way that maintains the integrity of the feathers in Latin America, especially for the outfit that Shakira ends up wearing. So we would be willing to take on that cost for designing some kind of, for procuring some kind of climate controlled storage structure for that specific outfit and associated outfits. But moving forward, if the new feathers do require still some temperature control, then we would like to discuss a joint investment in making sure that we can have a good amount of those ready to use.
I think we'd be very amenable to that, Miss Limberry.
Yes, I would agree. I'm okay with that. That sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much to all the parties here for this really productive dialogue back and forth. It seems like we have identified numerous points of connection, and I just want to commend everyone on their really positive attitudes towards working together in the spirit of collaboration. It sounds like we are making a lot of progress here today. And so let's just take a moment to quickly recap some of the things that were sort of decided and agreed upon in this back and forth exchange. First and foremost, it sounds like we are on the same page with regards to issuing a joint public statement with those two provisions. One, identifying the source of the issue with the feathers and that 120-degree temperature snafu, and two, providing that both parties are committed to taking additional steps to ensure that those issues, both parties are committed to taking additional steps to help ensure that those issues do not arise in the future, not necessarily categorically, because we all know that exceptions and extraordinary circumstances occur, but generally speaking. Would we agree that we are sort of on the same page in that regard?
Yes, we would agree.
Yes.
Thank you all. And it sounds like the folks at Avec Pleasure have some boilerplate language that they would like to share, and so we can certainly move into the specifics of that. But generally speaking, from what you both have shared thus far, it sounds like it's quite similar to what you've both expressed, and so I do not foresee that being a large point of contention. Now, that being said, moving on, with regards to the temperature control of the feathers going forward. It sounds to me like both parties are in agreement that they are willing to, and in fact would like to, invest together in a temperature control container or mechanism for ensuring the quality of both the raw material of the feathers and the finished design products from start to finish. So from shipment from Limbury all the way into through the design process and through the shipping to eventual clients. I'm hearing that we are on the same page about identifying and investing in such a container that would benefit both parties going forward and their respective reputations, with the knowledge that Avec Pleasure would, of course, remain responsible for the conditions of their warehouse and might be willing to take additional steps to ensure that, the temperature fluctuations don't occur as often in the future, by perhaps investing in something like a generator. Are we on the same page in that regard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. We are making so much progress here. So moving on, it seems like there is a lot of willingness and excitement on both sides about the prospect of doing some targeted recovery. And there were some really creative solutions being thrown out here in this exchange, in this back and forth. You discussed perhaps additional photo shoots and articles and other PR stunts to increase the visibility of Avec Pleasure's designs on high-profile clients, as well as encouraging the clients to speak positively about, if not the feathers themselves, and certainly about the designs that they are wearing of Avec Pleasures that incorporate those feathers in a way that could have very positive results publicity-wise for both parties. So it sounds like we're on the same page with that as well. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
Caroline.
Okay, wonderful. Again, we are making such excellent progress here. And then let's see. Lastly, we are committed to, we are both very excited about the prospect of this new variation of feathers that Limbury has been developing, and we are in agreement, or I should say both parties are in agreement that we will wait until the finished production of this Feather 2.0. That way you will have better knowledge and testing regarding its durability and sustainability, and at that time we'll reevaluate what kind of temperature sensitivity protections are needed in place going forward. And it seems like, to my notes, that Avec Pleasure is in agreement on that end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And are you also in agreement over Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor's offer to sort of help front some funds for the container, make sure that you have temperature controlled and quality assurance in anticipation of your Latin American expansion?
Yes, absolutely.
30-minute reminder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baelish. All right, so we are doing excellently. We have agreed on a key number of provisions. And so one thing that we still have left on the agenda here to discuss is the exact language of that public statement that you would like to put out together. Now, is there anything else, any other ideas or things that have arisen as we've had this back and forth that you would like to make sure we address here today? I also want to make sure to leave time for that confidentiality agreement if you want to address that at all. Okay.
I think the only thing, sorry, that I may add is, we talked about investments and in the future for maybe future products or future methods of transporting or storing these feathers. And, one thing that we're open to is even investing in your research and design team to, even in the event that this new model of feather doesn't have the temperature robustness that, may be desirable for some of these hotter climates. We also are willing to discuss investing in your research and design company so that we could potentially push the bounds of the temperature robustness of these feathers in the future. So
We appreciate that.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. Please go ahead, Ms. Limbury.
I was just going to say we appreciate that. Going back to Ms. Caroline's statement about the confidentiality agreement, I was wondering where y'all stood on that. I would like to say that's a very important point for my company. Again, like my reputation has taken a hit, and I would like to keep everything confidential in terms of the new design and all that information. So I wanted to see if you would be agreeable to that.
Yes, we're certainly agreeable to proceeding with the confidentiality agreement to try to keep some of this under wraps.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully improve it, because both of our integrities are intertwined, and so we're very much in agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you very much. Go right ahead.
I just had a follow-up point. I believe Miss Limbury, or I believe it was Miss Taylor, I'm not sure who, which, I'm sorry about that, but there was the offer to replace the feathers that had been in the warehouse that had that temperature glitch, and we would really appreciate that because there is still a good amount of feathers that are there and are, not as usable as they were before. So that is very generous. We want to thank you for that.
Absolutely, we can definitely do that. Obviously, we want to make sure that what our product goes out is of the best quality and equally as important. At this point, it would be unusable for you. So in order to help facilitate, one, the further use of our feathers, and two, the integrity of both of our brands, we'll definitely do that for you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much to all of the parties, and thank you to Ms. Hassan for raising that important point, and to Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor for being so agreeable and generous in that regard. Now, it seems like we are on the same page with this confidentiality agreement, with our joint statement, with our revitalized press efforts, and with the temperature control. I want to turn back just a moment to the investments that Mr. McClain raised. Now, it sounds like from you, Ms. Limbury, that you are quite amenable to the idea of Avec Pleasure investing in this perhaps new technology that you are developing or looking into. And I'm wondering if, Mr. McClain, you had more of an idea of what that investment might look like, either in terms of monetarily or in terms of level of involvement and interest.
In general, with respect to like a monetary amount, I think that Limbury is probably in a better position to give an estimate since they work integrally with their research team, to give us an estimate of what sort of grant or amount that would be equitable, or I guess appropriate for providing research or funding research for an improved model of feather. And so, I mean, essentially, we would like a feather that would, hopefully be able to be durable even under more extreme temperatures. So I'll actually just kind of defer to you, Ms. Limbury. I mean, do you have any number or an idea of what sort of investment would be appropriate for helping your research group develop such an improved version of a feather?
So at this time, I've currently been informed that it would take a minimal cost to make this change and to fix this slight flaw. So at this time, we're not seeking monetary funds for this issue. However, if that changes, we are more than open to discussing a potential deal with you guys. However, if there is an issue, let's say we do fix the design flaw, and if there are potential temperature control issues still, we would again be more than happy to work together with y'all in terms of the temperature controlled solutions we can work on together. But at this current time, what I have been communicated about this issue is that it can be fixed with minimal cost. So we don't foresee there being a need for an investment at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty about that.
Well, thank you as well to both parties for that point of clarification. I am glad to hear that you are both on the same page going forward, and that you anticipate the issue can be fixed with minimal costs, and that it's not a large point of contention. I would say before we move on to sort of hashing out the details of that language in your agreement here today, is there anything else that any of the parties would like to raise before we continue?
I think I'm okay.
Nothing
Okay, as well.
We're good.
Hey, thank you all. Again, before we move into sort of the semantics of the language of this joint statement, I want to take a moment once again to commend everyone for the incredible progress that you have made together today. From everything that you've discussed, from the points of alignment on your joint statement, to your confidentiality agreement, to your press efforts, to your temperature control and new technology, it is very encouraging to see you so willing to work together in furtherance of your relationship, the value of both of your companies, and to the prosperity that will hopefully ensue in the future. So that being said, let's move on and discuss the language of the joint statement. Would anyone, I know that Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan have some boilerplate language that they'd like to suggest. Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor, you also suggested some language during our individual caucus earlier, which to my understanding from what I heard from both sides is quite similar. So would it be all right with you if we asked Mr. McClain and Hassan to begin by sharing the language of what they have, and we can work from there?
That's fine.
Yes, that works.
Is that okay with you, Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan?
That's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Okay, great. Please go ahead.
All right. So in general, I want to preface it by saying that what we're envisioning was more like a draft boilerplate letter that we can hand out to the PR team, legal team, or whoever of one of our clients that wears one of these dresses, basically just to assure them, of course, as I mentioned, that the quality of the dress with the feathers is not going to result in some sort of, the molted chicken incident. But the letter stays very general, not really addressing exactly what happened, but still giving enough indication to the relevant parties that the change in quality resulted from the method of storing the feathers. So right now, it's very straightforward. The letter reads, "We've identified a problem arising from the method of storage of the feathers. Since then, we have adjusted the conditions for storing the feathers, thereby substantially reducing the likelihood of a decrease in the aesthetic quality of the feathers." And then from there, both of us can sign this and provide this to our clients.
Thank you very much, Mr. McClain. Ms. Taylor or Ms. Limbury, would you like to respond?
I was actually wondering if I could conference with my attorney at this time.
Certainly. So what we are going to do now is have both Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor go into their own breakout room to conference, and Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan, you will also go into your own breakout room to conference. The time right now is about 5:40 p.m. Central Time. Do you have a sense of how much time you would require, Ms. Limbury?
Mr. McClain, I'm so sorry to interject. Can you please read that statement in full one more time?
Absolutely. We've identified a problem arising from the method of storage of the feathers. Since then, we have adjusted the conditions for storing the feathers, thereby substantially reducing the likelihood of a decrease in the aesthetic quality of the feathers. Excuse me.
Mr. McClain, could you please repeat just that last part after the word "thereby"?
Thereby substantially reducing the likelihood of a decrease in the aesthetic quality of the feathers.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do now for the ease of both parties is I am going to take that statement of text and put it in our Zoom chat, so we can both parties can look at it at the same time for the ease of Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor. So I'm going to put that sentence in there right now. I'll read it once again to make sure I have it correctly. We've identified a problem arising from the method of storage of the feathers. Since then, we have adjusted the conditions of storing the feathers, thereby substantially reducing the likelihood of a decrease in the aesthetic quality of the feathers. Is that correct, Mr. McClain?
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. So Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor, I've put that in the chat for your ease. That being said, would you still like to move into your individual conference?
Yes.
And how much time would you require when speaking to each other?
At this time, I think we would probably need 5 minutes or less.
Okay, so why don't we come back together at 5:47 Central Time. If you need more time, you can always let me know when we come back here together in this main session, and then we can move back into individual conference or caucus.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so both parties, please go to your breakout rooms at this time. And again, keep an eye on your cell phones. I will call you to rejoin when the time is right.
Fifteen-minute reminder.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Caroline, we are back.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Limber. I just sent out a reminder message to Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan, so hopefully they will join us shortly. Okay, it looks like Mr. McClain and Ms. Hassan have now rejoined us. So I hope that the time that you had to conference each client, so Ms. Hassan and Ms. Limbry, with your attorneys, Mr. McClain and Ms. Taylor, proved fruitful. I I am curious to know, would you like to share what you have decided in your individual conferences? And because it was Ms. Limbury and Ms. Taylor who called for the conference, I am going to offer them the floor to begin. Is that okay with you, Mr. McClain, Ms. Hassan?
That's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. I first want to say thank you so much for taking the time to draft a joint statement. We do feel that we have the ability to continue working forward together. We are amenable to the verbiage and language used in the statement. We did want to ask if I know you said that the statement would be issued out to essentially clients of yours as like a general blanket of quality, a testing of quality. We did want to see if you'd be amenable to submitting that statement as well to Vanity Fair, since that's the publication that the disparaging marks about our products came from, and or if you would be amenable to submitting in conjunction with a photo shoot or other PR things that were discussed previously as a way to help with PR repair, the joint statement would be issued with that as well, just so that we have the ability to try and target similar demographic and customer market that read the disparaging marks about my client's feathers in the first place.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry if I
go right ahead.
Okay. In general, I mean, yeah, we'd be very to all those terms. We're open to that, especially sending it to Vanity Fair to kind of Vanity to avoid that or hopefully remedy the incident that occurred. To your point about the increased opportunities, Ms. Hassan and I discussed a few specifics just to kind of make that term a little more clear, and we were considering allocating $2 million over the course of a year to spend on ads, photo shoots, and press releases for, of course, for the purposes of increasing the viewing of your product. And one thing that we wanted to add into that, just to make sure that we're in line with your vision, was to have a meeting every 4 months to just discuss how the money's been allocated, whether money's been allocated, and essentially just to give a progress report on how we're proceeding with this sort of ad campaign, if you will.
10-minute reminder.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that we could be very amenable to that. Ms. Limbury, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I agree. I think those terms are more than acceptable, and I want to thank you for putting in those funds. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course.
I would like to say too, we're also in my conversations with my client today, obviously we both want our PR reputations to turn around relatively as quickly as possible and kind of put this incident behind us, and we're willing to match that contribution to advertisements and PR for both our company and yours, assuming that the products that are used in those advertisements incorporate my client's products.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah,
absolutely.
That works.
Mr. McClain, are you confirming that the products in those targeted advertisements would be featuring the products, the feather products from Limbury?
Yes, I'm confirming that.
Thank you very much. All right. So just to backtrack, we have added a few additional provisions onto this joint statement. It seems like both parties are willing and amenable to submitting that statement to Vanity Fair, the magazine in question that produced the original damaging statement, and also to submitting it in conjunction with the various PR opportunities that you both have discussed, those photo shoots, those ads, those press releases, to increase product visibility. Am I correct that we are all on the same page in that regard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much to all our parties. And lastly, to Mr. McClain's final suggestion of meeting every 4 months to discuss how and whether that money has been allocated And then Limbury's response and willingness to match the contribution of $2 million. So total coming together for $4 million for this sort of publicity and marketing campaign, with the assurance that the feathers from Limbury will be featured throughout in the various advertising mechanisms. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they would like to add? I know that we are coming to a close on our time together today, and I want to make sure that we are on the same page about all of the provisions that we set out to discuss.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Limbury, but I believe that we are on board with everything that you've stated, Ms. Caroline, and we look forward to our continued relationship with Avec Pleasure.
Yes, I agree. I'm looking forward to working with y'all.
Yes, we are so pleased that we were able to resolve all of the issues that we had come to today's session with, and we're so excited to keep working together. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Caroline. Thank you to Limbury and counsel as well.
Yeah, thank you all for a pleasant mediation session. So
Thank you.
Well, I also would like to thank all of the parties here today, to Ms. Limbury and Ms. Hassan and your representatives, Ms. Taylor and Mr. McClain. It has been an absolute pleasure being your mediator today, and I am so thrilled with the progress that you all have made and the prospect of your continuing relationship. I will do one final recap of everything that we discussed to make sure that we are leaving on the same page and with the same next steps for how to move forward. So let me begin by saying we are in a group, the two parties are in agreement about producing a joint statement. And the statement will read, "We have identified a problem arising from the method of storage of the feathers. Since then, we have adjusted the conditions of storing the feathers, thereby substantially reducing the likelihood of a decrease in the aesthetic quality of the feathers." So that joint statement will be produced not only generally to the future clients of Avec Pleasure, but also be submitted to Vanity Fair, as well as alongside the additional press opportunities, the photo shoots, the ads, and the press releases that will occur in the future. On the note of those additional press opportunities, we have the addition of $4 million, two on the side of Avec Pleasure, being matched by two on the part of Limbury towards the furtherance of that publicity and that press, and with the condition that you will meet every 4 months to discuss how and when and whether the money has been allocated in a fashion agreeable to both parties. How are we doing so far?
Perfect.
We're good.
Great. So the last few items, the temperature control issue. Limbury has taken responsibility for paying for the temperature controlled shipping to ensure that Avec Pleasure has a smooth opening for its operations in Latin America and is able to secure that deal with Shakira, for which there is a 40-day sort of time limit. And also, both parties are committed to exploring new temperature control technology going forward from the beginning of the production process, by which Limbury is shipping feathers to Avec Pleasure throughout the warehouse storage, investing in new safeguards to ensure that a temperature breach like the one that previously occurred does not happen again, and then all the way to the shipping to the eventual client. Next, we have the replacement of the damaged feathers in the warehouse, which Limbury has agreed to replace at no additional cost in a showing of good faith and valuation of this relationship. And finally, we have our confidentiality agreement that everything that was discussed here today remains strictly confidential in the interest of the continued success of both parties. Am I leaving anything out?
Not from my count.
Everything
Okay.
sounds good.
All right. Well, with that being said, we are nearing the end of our time together here today. Once again, I commend everyone on this very successful mediation session. I wish you the best of luck in your continued endeavors, and we'll leave it to both of you to follow up with the specifics of your arrangements going forward. It was my pleasure to work with you all, to serve as your mediator, and I wish you a very good evening and best of luck in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline.
All right. And with that, I am stopping the clock.